Bitcoin may be entering a death spiral that no one saw coming. Over 4,500 Bitcoin wallet addresses have been drained of 89 million Bitcoin in the Coldcard hacks so far. And the devastation continues to spread. And the attack is exposing one of the most frightening weaknesses imaginable. Not an exchange, not a smart contract, but the keys themselves. And this is all happening at the same time as the largest corporate holder of Bitcoin just authorized plans to sell up to $5 billion worth of Bitcoin, 10% of their stack. With the Clarity Act about to pass, Washington now has the perfect angle to argue. Self-custody is dangerous. Every wallet must be monitored. Bitcoin needs to be brought under the control of the regulatory authorities. And if you thought this was bad, it gets worse. Japan and the United States just conducted the largest currency intervention of all time. America's borrowing costs are surging, and the national debt just crossed $40 trillion. So what happens when a wallet crisis, a massive Bitcoin sale, a regulatory crackdown, and a sovereign debt crisis all hit at the same time? That's what's happening right now. Today I'm going to show you why this might be even worse than Mt. Gox, which poses the question, will this Bitcoin death spiral end before the financial system collapses? This is Dante Cook with Bitcoin Simply. Let's go. All right, everybody, we're going to update everyone on this Coldcard hack, and it's so unfortunate. I'm so sorry for all of the people who've lost funds out there. If you've purchased a Coldcard device from 2021 forward, whether it's MK3, MK4, MK5, and even Q, I would highly suggest that you move your Bitcoin to a different wallet address not generated through Coldcard. Because so far, there have been 4,500 Bitcoin wallet addresses drained. That's over 1,000 Bitcoin of people who stacked, saved, never put their Bitcoin online, and took self-custody into their own hands, and at no fault of their own, from a fault of a manufacturer who didn't utilize enough entropy, who didn't take the necessary steps to secure your Bitcoin seed phrases. Now these people are affected. And it appears that this is just the beginning. We've got a multitude of different hackers using Kimi 3, AI tools, and LLMs to try to brute force their way into unlocking the keys to your Bitcoin. And the crazy part is, we've got OG Bitcoiners who are now selling, who are now moving their Bitcoin to exchanges or getting out of Bitcoin altogether. And this is happening at the same exact time where Bitcoin's largest holder in MicroStrategy or Strategy has authorized a sale of up to $5 billion in Bitcoin. They want to use $1.25 billion to fund their reserves, $1.75 billion for buybacks, and another $2 billion to refund their repurchasing programs. And people like Peter Schiff immediately jumped in to propose the prospect of a death spiral, in that when they begin selling, they're going to have to raise much more than $5 billion to cover the hole, implicating that this financial machine might be unraveling. Michael Saylor clapped back saying that this is old news, meaning by old news, it's a month old, and that they don't have to, quote unquote, sell their Bitcoin. It's not a goal to sell Bitcoin, but they would sell it or might sell it for their stated purposes. And this is where death spirals begin. Bitcoin crashes in price. Strategy has to unload more Bitcoin. People lose faith in Bitcoin. The sale pushes Bitcoin lower, and this requires people like Strategy and others to sell more to cover their collateral. This happens in every major sell-off and every major panic. And regardless whether this was old news or whether this was announced a month ago, I think I have to question Saylor's comments on the BIP 110 saga. In the midst of people losing all of their Bitcoin, which again, he's a corporate actor. He's a chairman of a multi-billion-dollar company. He doesn't actually have to comment on the Coldcard stuff, but I do think the BIP 110 stuff for him being so active in Bitcoin is a bit tone deaf. And when he partnered with Blockstream and Block and BlackRock and all of these different firms, you have to question whether these things are coincided. Whether the Bitcoin split that's upcoming and this Coldcard hack, which could have been found in 2021, and the Clarity Act all coming at one single event, you have to wonder if all of these things are truly random. And of course, whether it's random or not, Washington is going to use this opportunity to pounce. And here's where the panic becomes useful. You never let a crisis go to waste, especially when you need it as leverage to say that Bitcoin is bad. Crypto can be used by bad actors to steal innocent people's money, which is exactly what's happening right now. Listen to this clip from Senator Warren.
Because I see the Clarity Bill as insulting to the American people. Sometimes you get fooled. Sometimes, despite your best efforts, people get fooled. Sometimes Congress gets fooled. But boy, not this time. Donald Trump has made clear what his scam is. Other scams are right out here where we can see them, where criminals are able to step up their activity because crypto gives them that special advantage to be able to get the money and hide who they are. It's also happening with terrorists being able to use crypto, and the risk that crypto poses to the entire financial system. We've got the whole question about, in effect, shadow banking here and what that's going to mean. We know what the problems are. We see a bill that's moving, and yet we don't fix it.
The Clarity Act is arriving at the same time where Democrats are putting pressure on Republicans to add more surveillance, more provisions, and more safeguards against the current president who has used and leveraged crypto to their own financial gain and benefit. This is clearly a coordinated effort. Why else would Hunter Biden be on Vlad TV, talking to an interviewer who's typically interviewing gangsters, criminals, and violent offenders, talking about crypto and Bitcoin? Well, it's because they're creating a groundswell of opposition against the president and against Bitcoin as a self-custody tool.
I was orange-pilled by a book called The Internet of Money. I truly believe in Bitcoin. I truly believe in the idea of cryptocurrency. You know why I truly believe in it? It's because when I worked as the chairman of the board of the World Food Program, the U.S. division of it, I traveled around the world to all the places in which there were refugee camps. And what we were trying to do at that time is we were trying to institute a plan by which people would have the ability to transact on microtransactions through a digital asset, by digitally, so that they wouldn't drain the entire economy. And I read The Internet of Money and I thought, you know what? That is exactly what we're talking about. We're talking about subsistence farmers in Angola being able to sell their crops in Kinshasa over a digital phone because they get real-time information and currency. They took this and they totally turned it into a grift. Bitcoin's down from 120 to 60 to below 60. He was the Bitcoin Messiah. He was the cryptocurrency Messiah. You know what he did? He took it all and he did like he does everything. He dirtied it. He muddied it. He made it dirty. And you know how we know? Literally, it's in black and white. He launched a coin, and I believe in tokens. He launched a coin and he extracted, he took 80% of the inside and he extracted, what, $650 or $1 million from the token alone? That's dropped in value from 75 to $1.36? And Melania did it, and Barron did something, and then the boys over here did something, and they took money from the UAE and from the Saudis, and they took $500 million here and $500 million here, and all of a sudden they got a new jet. The Qataris gave them, and they put $1 billion of U.S. taxpayer money, and they get to keep it when they leave.
This is a campaign to divide Bitcoiners while simultaneously creating leverage to enact policy. Policy that once it's implemented, as we've seen in the past with the Patriot Act or other surveillance things, can never be undone. Governments cannot ban Bitcoin, but they can regulate the bank, the exchange, the broker, the stablecoin issuer, the wallet maker, the merchant, and everyone reporting taxes. This is all the perfect storm brewing at the right time. And it's all happening simultaneously with the sovereign bond market collapsing, starting in Japan. But before we go any further, we need to point you to some resources that you should consider. When it comes to trusting a bank or other large parties, I would rather trust myself, especially if I've taken the right steps and the right measures to custody my Bitcoin properly. If I've done so, I might think about borrowing against my Bitcoin versus selling it without any capital gains. And you can do this with Ledn, institutional grade Bitcoin custody, which allows you to borrow up to 50% of the Bitcoin you post to their platform. They don't relend it, they don't rehypothecate it. The Bitcoin is in a wallet address that you can see directly on chain. Consider being your own bank versus trusting the other banks. You can repay it at any time and there's no credit checks. And before you do that, cover all of your bases. Talk to a Bitcoin expert. Talk to them about multi-sig. Talk to them about the different wallets and products that you use. Talk to them about generating your own seed phrases in your own words and then recovering them on a new wallet to actually make your Bitcoin more safe and not trusting a wallet provider to do it for you. The team at the Bitcoin Way will talk you through all of these steps and help you to prepare for what might happen in the future. Another wallet hack, another manufacturer being compromised. Schedule a free 30-minute meeting with their team and do it before you need to or have to. The United States just stepped in alongside of Japan for one of the most historic currency interventions that we've ever seen. The Japanese currency just fell to a 40-year low against the United States dollar. And it's actually opposite for you guys out there. When the Japanese yen goes up in price, 162, 163, 164, it's actually collapsing against the United States dollar. And so what does Japan do? When you look at this chart, they intervene. And just after them, the United States intervened. And how they did it is very unique. Japan deployed almost $60 billion to save their own currency. And the United States backed them up by selling euros in the open market to buy more yen. When you look at this, you have to question, why does the United States care so much about Japan? Scott Besson gives us a little clip in the inside of what's happening now.
I'm going to ask you about Japan. It seems the Japanese intervened in their markets, in their currency markets earlier today. Do you have a response to that?
We think that excess volatility in the yen isn't healthy. And, I was in the currency business for 40 years, and Japanese yen seems very undervalued to me. The currency is very cheap. The economy is doing well. The prime minister is very popular and enacting very strong policies. And I think we're going to see the fundamentals come through. At a point that the market will realize the yen is undervalued and should strengthen.
So you're not concerned about the strength of the yen against the dollar?
No. That the currency markets tend to overshoot, and I believe the Japanese yen has substantially overshot what would be called an equilibrium price.
Japan is the largest holder of U.S. Treasury debt worldwide. They hold over $1 trillion worth of U.S. debt. And if they begin selling U.S. Treasuries, it's no longer a yen currency problem. It's our problem, the United States currency's problem, which is why Scott Besson has the authority and has intervened. He may say it's because the Japanese yen is cheap and their economy is great. No, it's because they cannot afford a collapse in the economy. And this is where, when the Iran war continues to drag on, you have to look at the implications not for the United States and the big nations, but the other nations tethered to and connected to the United States, like Japan, who imports the majority of their foods, goods, and resources. American yields are already climbing right now. The 30-year is especially ugly at over 5.2%. This is the long-term fixed rate that impacts a lot of the things that go into the real economy, like buying a car, like buying a home or a mortgage. And when these rates go up, it makes it more expensive to pay down U.S. debt, which has now crossed $40 trillion. And over a third of it is soon to be due and at maturity, meaning we're going to have to refinance this debt at a much higher rate than we had before, automatically pushing up the U.S. debt. And America cannot afford to lose trillions of dollars in its capital base, and it cannot afford to have Japan selling off its treasuries. That's why it's doing everything it can to defend it. And that's why they're urging Congress to pass the Clarity Act. They need new debt rails and the ability to create new debt out of thin air. They want to do it with crypto rails and a new collateral that's not tied to anything else or any other sovereign agreement they have with any other nation in the past. But what's going to happen when this Clarity Act passes, with the fear that's going on the Bitcoin market right now with this wallet breach, is that they're going to use this to be able to curtail, surveil, freeze, and monitor Bitcoin and any crypto. They're going to give banks more regulatory power, saying, see, I told you so. We need a way to protect American consumers against hacks like this. The only next step that the Americans and the Fed chair, Kevin Warsh, has right now is to cut rates and provide more liquidity into the economy. They're going to have to create repo facilities. They're going to have to buy securities. They're going to have to buy mortgage. They're going to have to buy real estate. They're going to have to weaken the dollar in real terms. The only question is, what rails are they going to do it in? And what amount of collateral are they going to be able to capture in the process? It's a two-edged sword. The same crisis that could push Bitcoin's price meaningfully lower from here. Let's be real. It's the same crisis that could prove Bitcoin's worth and purpose in the long term. Every episode I usually end with a Bitcoin fixes this, a Bitcoin hope type of play and argument. Bitcoin doesn't fix the one line of code that had $90 million of people's Bitcoin and their hard-earned savings drained. Bitcoin doesn't fix leverage. It doesn't fix Washington. It doesn't fix a collapsing Japanese yen. It gives us rules and we build around those rules. And the human systems look fragile right now. Cold storage looks compromised. Bitcoin's largest holder looks like it's losing faith. Washington is expanding its oversight. Japan's currency, the largest holder of U.S. debt and treasuries, is now showing weakness and signs of collapse. So what's happening right now? Is Bitcoin crumbling, or is this all a result of the fiat system built on top of it? How we've outsourced trust and outsourced responsibility? Will Bitcoin be dragged down with all of the human problems and all of the other problems, or will it stand the test of time? This is potentially even worse than the Mt. Gox hack, which in 2014 caused thousands and millions of people to lose millions of dollars in their Bitcoin holdings. But it created a loss of faith in the system that didn't get regained and rebuilt until around 2016 and 2017. This isn't an issue with Bitcoin, but all the institutions around it are falling. What do you think is going to happen next? I can't honestly tell you what will, but it's a tough time right now. And even despite these tough times, I still do believe in Bitcoin and in the protocol. I continue to stack sats, not with money that I have to lose, but with money that I gain in excess of whatever the things are that I need. I save more than I earn, on top of the money that we give away, still trying to be generous and charitable in tough times for people. And I find creative ways, whether through it's our own tax code or ways of acquiring Bitcoin to do more. And that's why SAS mining is a great partner. You can acquire Bitcoin through Bitcoin mining, which sends sats directly to your wallet while you sleep. There's tax advantages as well, something to consider if you are still a believer in Bitcoin long term. But I can understand if your faith is shaken. Use the QR code to get started with SAS mining if you already have it. This is Dante Cook with Bitcoin Simply. Stay safe out there and take the necessary steps if you have been a Coldcard user. Happy stacking.